Captured by the unknown. Ethan Carter sat in the pilot's seat of his small spaceship, the Starborn Voyager. His hands moved over the controls, checking the system readings. Everything seemed normal. The cold silence of space surrounded him as he drifted through an uncharted sector of the galaxy. He had been traveling alone for weeks, exploring deep space, searching for resources and new planets. Suddenly, his ship shook violently. The control panel flickered, and alarms blared. "What the hell?" Ethan muttered, gripping the controls. A strange force pulled the ship forward, dragging it off course. Ethan tried to fight it, pushing the thrusters to full power, but it was useless. The gravitational force was too strong. The ship's AI, no VA, spoke in a calm voice. "Warning. Unknown energy field detected. Unable to escape." Ethan cursed under his breath. Through the cockpit window, he saw a massive alien vessel appearing from the darkness. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, sleek, black, and glowing with faint blue lines. It had no visible weapons, but the way it moved was unnatural, like it was alive. Before Ethan could react, the ship's systems shut down completely. The lights flickered, and the engines went dead. His seat restraints tightened as the Starborn Voyager was slowly pulled inside the alien ship. A sudden hiss of air filled the cockpit. The emergency lights turned red. They were boarding him. Ethan grabbed a small plasma pistol from his belt and took a deep breath. The cockpit door slid open with a quiet hum. A shadowy figure stepped inside. It was not human. The alien was tall, with smooth silver-blue skin and piercing golden eyes. Her face was elegant, her long dark hair flowing behind her like it was moving in slow motion. She wore a sleek, form-fitting suit that shimmered under the dim lights. Ethan raised his pistol. "Stay back." The alien woman tilted her head, studying him with an unreadable expression. Then, in perfect English, she spoke. "You are mine now. There's no turning back." Ethan's grip on the pistol tightened. "Excuse me. I don't belong to anyone." She took a step forward, completely ignoring the weapon pointed at her. "You do not understand yet, but you will." Before Ethan could react, his vision blurred. A sharp pain shot through his head, and his body collapsed. The last thing he saw was the alien woman kneeling beside him, placing a hand on his chest. Then, darkness. Ethan woke up in a strange room. The walls were smooth and glowing faintly with blue light. He tried to move, but his arms were restrained by some kind of invisible force field. "What the hell is this?" he growled, struggling against the restraints. A door slid open without a sound, and the alien woman walked in. "You are awake," she said. "No kidding," Ethan snapped. "Where am I? Who the hell are you?" She stopped a few feet away from him, her golden eyes watching him closely. "I am Lara, and you are aboard my ship." "Great. Now let me go." She shook her head. "I cannot." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Why?" Lara's gaze softened, but her voice was firm. "Because you are my chosen mate." Ethan froze. "What?" She took another step closer. "You are the first human to be bound to a Vel-Zeri mate bond. It is unbreakable." Ethan's heart pounded. This had to be some kind of sick joke. "Listen, lady, I don't know what kind of alien customs you have, but I am not your mate. I don't even know you." Lara did not look angry. If anything, she seemed patient. "You do not understand yet," she repeated. "Your body is already changing. Soon, you will feel it too." Ethan wanted to argue, to call her crazy, but then he noticed something strange. His body felt warm. There was a strange energy pulsing through his veins, something foreign yet familiar. What the hell was happening to him? Before he could demand answers, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Lara's calm expression turned into one of concern. "What's going on?" Ethan asked. She turned to a holographic screen that appeared from thin air. Her eyes narrowed. "We are under attack." "By who?" Lara looked at him, her expression serious. "The Drakmor," she said, "and they have come for you." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Me? Why me?" Tilara didn't answer. Instead, she released his restraints with a simple wave of her hand. "Come," she said urgently. "If they take you, you will not survive." Ethan hesitated for only a second. He didn't trust her, but he trusted the unknown enemy even less. He stood up. "All right," he said. "Let's get the hell out of here." And with that, they ran. The bond that cannot be broken. The alarm screamed through the corridors of the alien ship as red warning lights pulsed in every direction. Ethan Carter's heart pounded as he ran beside Tilara, the mysterious alien who claimed he was her mate. His mind still reeled from her words, but there was no time to argue. Something was coming for him. Tilara's steps were silent and precise, her body moving with inhuman speed as she led him through the metallic corridors. Ethan struggled to keep up, his breathing ragged. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen, smooth surfaces that seemed alive, shifting and adjusting to their presence. "Who are the Drakmor?" Ethan demanded between breaths. Tilara didn't turn her head, but he could sense the tension in her voice. "A species that thrives on consuming the strong. They do not take prisoners. They take resources." Ethan frowned. "And you think I'm a resource?" Tilara suddenly stopped and turned to him. Her golden eyes locked onto his, intense and filled with something Ethan couldn't place. "Concern. Fear. No," she said firmly. "I think you are something far more important." Before Ethan could ask what that meant, the ship shook violently. The lights flickered, and the walls rippled as if in pain. The Drakmor ship had latched onto them. Tilara grabbed Ethan's wrist. "We must hurry." She pulled him toward a massive door, which slid open to reveal a dark, glowing chamber. Ethan's stomach turned at the sight. The room was alive, its walls pulsing with energy. At the center was a floating, swirling orb of blue light. "What is that?" he asked, stepping back instinctively. "Our only escape," Tilara said, reaching for the control panel. Before she could activate it, the ceiling burst open. Dark figures dropped down, their forms sleek and inhuman. The Drakmor had arrived. They were terrifying. Tall, with jagged exoskeletons, their bodies covered in obsidian-like armor. Their eyes burned red, and their fingers ended in razor-sharp claws. One of them stepped forward, its voice a horrible mix of hissing and growling. "The human comes with us." Ethan felt every muscle in his body tense. Tilara stepped in front of him, her stance firm, her body glowing faintly with a strange energy. "He is mine." The Drakmor leader let out a guttural laugh. "You think you can stop us, Velzeri?" Without warning, Tilara moved faster than Ethan could comprehend. In an instant, she grabbed a weapon from her waist, a blade made of shimmering blue energy, and lunged. The battle was brutal. Tilara twisted and spun, her blade slicing through the exoskeletons of the Drakmor. Sparks flew as their armor cracked under her strikes. Ethan stumbled back, his instincts screaming at him to run, but something inside him refused to abandon her. One of the Drakmor charged at him. Ethan barely had time to react before his body moved on its own. His arm shot up, catching the creature's attack midair. His grip tightened, and he flipped the Drakmor over his shoulder, slamming it onto the ground. The impact sent a shockwave through his muscles, a strength he didn't know he had. He gasped, staring at his own hands. "What the hell?" Tilara didn't even look surprised. "The bond is awakening," she said, breathing hard as she slashed through another enemy. Ethan didn't have time to process what that meant. The Drakmor were still coming. He grabbed a fallen enemy's weapon, a sleek plasma rifle, and fired. The blast hit one of the Drakmor directly in the chest, sending it flying backward. The leader let out a furious snarl. "Kill them." Tilara grabbed Ethan's wrist again. "We must go. Now." She pulled him toward the glowing orb at the center of the chamber. Ethan resisted, Where does this thing even lead? Tilara met his eyes. Away from here. Ethan clenched his jaw. He didn't trust her. He didn't trust any of this. But right now, he had no better option. The Drakmor charged toward them just as Tilara activated the orb. The world exploded into light. The awakening. Ethan landed hard on cold ground. His body ached, his vision blurred. He groaned, pushing himself up. They were no longer inside the ship. The air was heavy with the scent of strange flowers and burning ozone. A soft, purple glow filled the sky, and massive trees stretched into the heavens, their leaves shimmering like metal. Tilara stood beside him, breathing hard. We made it. Ethan exhaled sharply. Where the hell are we? She turned to face him. A hidden world. Safe. For now. Ethan looked around, his instincts still on high alert. How do I know I can trust you? Tilara took a step closer, her voice softer now. Because whether you accept it or not, our bond has already begun. Ethan's body tensed as a strange sensation rippled through him. A warmth in his chest, a connection he could feel. His heart pounded. There was no turning back now. Escape or accept. Ethan Carter sat on the damp ground, his back resting against the smooth bark of an enormous tree. The air was thick with the scent of strange flowers and burning ozone, and the sky above glowed with an unnatural purple hue. He wasn't on Earth anymore. He wasn't even sure if he was still in the same part of the galaxy. His body still buzzed from the strange energy that had pulsed through him back on Tilara's ship. He could feel something inside him shifting, like his cells were responding to an unknown force. Tilara stood a few feet away, scanning the jungle-like landscape. She seemed at ease here, while Ethan felt like every shadow was watching him. He exhaled sharply. All right, start talking. Where the hell are we? Tilara turned to him, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. We are on Vaynera, a hidden world, untouched by the war between the Velzeri and the Drakmor. Ethan let out a humorless laugh. Great. So I've been abducted and dumped on an alien jungle planet. That's just fantastic. Tilara stepped closer, her expression calm but firm. You were not abducted, Ethan. I saved you. He shot her a look. Saved me. You bonded me to you against my will. And now you're telling me my body is changing because of it. She nodded, her voice steady. Yes. Ethan clenched his fists. And what happens if I refuse this? Bond. Tilara's gaze flickered with something unreadable. You cannot refuse. The bond is already formed. If you resist it, it will only cause you pain. Ethan's chest tightened. He hated feeling trapped, and right now, every fiber of his being screamed at him to fight back. But deep inside, there was another feeling, one he couldn't ignore, a connection. Even now, standing several feet apart, he could feel her. Not just physically, but emotionally, like her presence was wrapped around his very soul. It made no sense, yet it was undeniable. Damn it, he muttered under his breath. Tilara studied him. I know this is difficult for you, but there is no other way. The Drakmor will come again, and they will not stop until they have you. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Why? What do they want from me? Tilara hesitated before answering. Your human DNA is unique. The Velzeri mate bond was never meant to connect with another species, yet you have adapted to it faster than any of my kind would. Ethan rubbed his temples. So I'm a science experiment. No. Her voice softened. You are my mate. Something in the way she said it made Ethan pause. It wasn't just some cold biological fact to her. She believed it. Ethan let out a breath and pushed himself up from the ground. Fine. Let's say I believe you. What now? Are we just gonna hide here forever? Tilara shook her head. No. We must find the Temple of the Elders. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And that is a place of ancient knowledge. It is said that the elders understood the nature of the bond better than any living Velzeri. If we can reach it, we may find answers about why the bond formed with you, and how to protect you from the Drakmor. Ethan folded his arms, and let me guess, it's not going to be easy to get there. Tilara gave a small smile. Nothing ever is. The journey begins. The jungle was alive, but not in the way Earth's forests were. The plants seemed to react to their presence, some curling away, others shifting toward them, as if trying to sense them. Strange bioluminescent creatures darted through the air, leaving glowing trails behind them. Ethan stayed close to Tilara as they made their way through the dense terrain. He still didn't trust her completely, but he trusted the unknown dangers of this planet even less. A few hours into their journey, Ethan noticed something strange. He was moving faster, reacting quicker. His senses felt sharper. He could hear the faintest rustle in the trees, smell the distinct metallic scent of the alien air. He frowned. Is this because of the bond? Tilara glanced at him. Yes, the connection between us enhances both of us. I am stronger when you are near, and so are you. Ethan wasn't sure how he felt about that. He had spent his whole life depending on himself, relying on his own strength. The idea that he was now linked to someone else, that his very existence was intertwined with hers, made his stomach twist. Before he could say anything, Tilara suddenly stopped. Her hand shot out, pressing against his chest to halt him. Quiet, she whispered. Ethan held his breath. Then he heard it. A low growl in the distance. Something big was moving through the trees. The ground trembled slightly beneath Ethan's feet, and he instinctively reached for his plasma pistol. Tilara's golden eyes narrowed. We are not alone. Ethan tightened his grip on his weapon. Yeah, I figured. From the shadows of the trees, a massive creature emerged. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. 6 legs, armored plating across its body, and rows of jagged teeth dripping with an eerie blue liquid. Tilara whispered something in her native language. A Vornak. They hunt in packs. Ethan cursed. Of course they do. The creature let out a piercing screech, and suddenly, the jungle exploded with movement. More Vornaks emerged, their glowing eyes locking onto their prey. Tilara drew her energy blade, and Ethan raised his plasma pistol. No sudden moves, she whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly. I don't think they're interested in talking. The lead Vornak lunged. Ethan fired, the plasma shot hitting its armored hide, barely slowing it down. Tilara moved in a blur, slicing through another creature before spinning back to block a second attack. Ethan dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding a swipe from razor-sharp claws. His heart pounded. He had been in fights before, but never against alien monsters on an uncharted world. As the creature circled, a strange feeling rose in Ethan's chest, a surge of power, instinct, as if something inside him was awakening. Tilara turned to him, her eyes wide. Ethan, the bond. Let it guide you. He didn't know what she meant, but suddenly, his body moved on its own. His reflexes sharpened, his aim became perfect, and his strength doubled. And then, he fought. The enemy within. The jungle burned. Blue fire crackled across the trees, sending thick black smoke into the unnatural purple sky. The bodies of Vornak beasts lay motionless on the jungle floor, their armored hides still glowing from plasma burns. The fight had been brutal, but Ethan Carter and Tilara had survived. Barely. Ethan stood in the middle of the battlefield, his breathing ragged, his muscles aching from the fight. His plasma pistol smoked in his grip, the power cell drained from overuse. He turned to look at Tilara, who was kneeling beside a fallen Vornak, her golden eyes distant. Something had changed during the fight. Ethan had felt it, the bond between them growing stronger. It was no longer just a strange presence in the back of his mind. It was alive, pulsing inside him, guiding his movements, making him faster, stronger, more precise. He had moved like he had trained for this all his life, dodging, striking, killing. It was like his body had become something else entirely. Something not human. Ethan exhaled sharply, his heart still pounding from the adrenaline. He turned to Tilara. "You need to tell me what's happening to me," he demanded. Tilara slowly rose to her feet, wiping her energy blade against her sleeve before sheathing it at her side. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "You are changing," she admitted softly. Ethan clenched his fists. "No kidding." Tilara took a slow step toward him. "Your human DNA was never meant to bond with mine. And yet, it has. The connection between us is rewriting your body at a fundamental level." Ethan swallowed hard. "You mean I'm turning into one of you?" Tilara shook her head. "Not exactly. You are still human, but now you are something more. Stronger, faster, linked to me in ways that even I do not fully understand." Ethan ran a hand through his damp hair. His entire body felt different, not just the fatigue of battle, but something deeper, a sensation of raw power that hadn't been there before. And then there was the other part. Tilara. He could feel her emotions, not just see them. He knew she was exhausted, but not from fighting. From worry, from the uncertainty of what was happening to him. He gritted his teeth. "You should have told me." Tilara's expression didn't change. Would it have made a difference? Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. Because she was right. Would he have turned back if she had told him? Would he have fought against the bond harder? Or had some part of him already known that there was no escaping this? Before he could answer, the jungle stirred. Tilara's posture tensed, her hand flying to her weapon. Ethan gripped his pistol, even though it was out of charge. A low, unnatural voice echoed through the burning jungle. "Well, well, the lost Velzeri and her human pet." Ethan turned sharply toward the voice. Emerging from the shadows was a tall figure, a Velzeri male. His silver-blue skin was darker than Tilara's, and his golden eyes held no warmth. He wore dark battle armor, the markings of a warrior etched into his chest plate. Tilara's face remained unreadable, but Ethan could feel her shock, her unease. "Varric," she whispered. Ethan's instincts flared. This was someone from her past. The stranger, Varric, smirked, stepping closer. "I never thought I'd see the day you would disgrace your bloodline. Tilara, bonding with a human. How desperate have you become?" Ethan tightened his grip on his useless weapon. "Who the hell are you?" Varric turned his gaze to Ethan, disgust flickering in his golden eyes. "I am someone who actually belongs to this species, human." His smirk widened. You are nothing but a mistake." Ethan took a threatening step forward, but Tilara blocked his path. "Don't," she warned softly. Ethan clenched his jaw. He wasn't used to being looked down on like that. Varric crossed his arms. "The Drakmor are hunting you. Tilara, do you think you can keep running forever? Or do you think your little experiment can save you?" Tilara's eyes hardened. "You do not understand the bond, Varric." Varric chuckled darkly. "No, you do not understand. You think you can protect him. You think this connection makes you stronger." His expression turned cold. "You are wrong." Without warning, Varric lunged at Ethan. Ethan barely had time to react, but the bond moved before he did. His body shifted, dodging the attack with inhuman precision. He twisted, grabbing Varric's wrist and slamming him into the ground with enough force to crack the soil beneath them. Varric's eyes widened in shock. Ethan stood over him, breathing hard, his pulse pounding in his ears. Tilara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "You see now." Varric narrowed his eyes. This should not be possible." Ethan let go and stepped back, shaking his head. "Yeah, welcome to my life." Varric slowly pushed himself up, rubbing his wrist. His smirk had returned, but his eyes held something different now. Curiosity. Calculation. "Very well," he said. "If you truly believe in this bond, then prove it." Tilara stiffened. "What do you mean?" Varric took a step back, his smirk widening. The Drakmor aren't the only ones hunting you. There are those among our own kind who would see this experiment destroyed before it goes any further. He tilted his head. The only way to protect him is to return to the Velzeri homeworld and make a choice. Ethan's stomach twisted. What choice? Varric's golden eyes gleamed. To fully embrace the bond, or to sever it forever. Tilara's breath hitched. Ethan felt it, her hesitation, her fear. Because there was only one way to sever the bond. One of them would not survive. The jungle fell silent. Ethan looked at Tilara, his heart pounding. There was no turning back now. The battle for freedom. The air between them crackled with tension. The jungle around them had fallen eerily silent, as if even the alien creatures sensed the storm that was coming. Ethan Carter stood rigid, his fists clenched at his sides. His mind reeled at Varric's ultimatum, to return to the Velzeri homeworld and embrace the bond fully, or sever it forever. Sever. The word twisted in his gut like a knife. He already knew what it meant. If the bond was broken, one of them would not survive. Tilara was motionless beside him, but Ethan could feel her emotions rippling through the bond. Fear, uncertainty, and something deeper, something she was trying to hide from him. Varric, the Velzeri warrior who had appeared from the shadows of Tilara's past, watched them with cold amusement. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was testing them, and Ethan hated him for it. Tilara finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. I will not go back to be judged by those who fear what they do not understand. Varric chuckled darkly. Fear? No, Tilara. They do not fear the bond. They fear what it will make you. His golden eyes flickered toward Ethan, and what it will make him. Ethan stepped forward, his anger bubbling beneath the surface. You keep talking like I'm some kind of experiment. But I'm standing right here, pal. If you got something to say it to me. Varric smirked. Ah, the human speaks with fire. His eyes gleamed. That's good. You'll need it where we're going. Ethan narrowed his eyes. And where's that? The ground rumbled beneath them. A low hum vibrated through the jungle, growing louder by the second. Ethan's instincts flared. Something was coming. He turned sharply, his senses sharper than ever, scanning the dense alien foliage. The bond pulsed, warning him. Tilara reacted first. They found us. A deep roar split the air. Then, from the sky, the Drakmor descended. The fight for survival. The dark-armored warriors of the Drakmor dropped from above like falling meteors, their glowing red eyes locked onto Ethan. Their armor was sleek and segmented, pulsing with veins of molten energy, their movements unnervingly precise. The largest of them, a hulking brute with clawed gauntlets, raised his hand. A deep, echoing voice boomed through the battlefield. The human is ours. Ethan gritted his teeth. Yeah, come take me. The first Drakmor lunged. Ethan didn't think, he moved. His body reacted with impossible speed, dodging the massive warrior's strike. His mind barely had time to register what was happening, but his instincts had already adapted. He twisted midair, catching the Drakmor's wrist, and using its own momentum to flip the beast onto the ground. The creature snarled, but before it could rise, Ethan snapped out his plasma blade and drove it into the alien's exposed neck. The Drakmor fell still. Ethan didn't have time to react before two more were on him. Tilara moved like a shadow, her energy blade carving through the air in sharp, deadly arcs. She sliced through one enemy's armor, spun, and landed a devastating kick to another's chest, sending him crashing into the trees. But the Drakmor kept coming. Varric let out a sharp laugh, his golden eyes glinting with battle hunger. It seems you've brought quite the trouble to our doorstep, Tilara. Then, to Ethan's shock, Varric joined the fight. The Velzeri warrior moved like a phantom, his strikes fast and brutal, his energy blades leaving behind trails of blue fire. He wasn't here to talk anymore. He was here to kill. Ethan barely dodged an incoming strike, rolling to the side as another Drakmor tried to grab him. He swung his plasma rifle upward and fired, the energy blast ripping through the alien's chestplate. But then, a sudden, blinding pain tore through his side. Ethan gasped, stumbling as a Drakmor blade slashed across his ribs. The world tilted. Tilera's scream echoed through his mind. Ethan. The bond reacted instantly, flooding his body with a surge of raw alien energy. His vision sharpened, the pain dulling almost instantly. He felt her panic, her rage, and it became his own. Ethan's body moved on instinct, his hand shooting up, gripping the wrist of the warrior who had stabbed him. He squeezed. The Drakmor let out a strangled roar of pain as Ethan's grip crushed the alien's bones with inhuman strength. Ethan barely recognized his own voice when he spoke. "You shouldn't have done that." Then, with a final twist, he ripped the Drakmor's arm from its socket. The creature collapsed, shrieking, as Ethan turned toward the next enemy. Something inside him was awakening, something dangerous, and for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. The turning point. The fight was a blur of steel, plasma, and fire. One by one, the Drakmor fell. When the last enemy collapsed, the jungle was silent once more. Ethan stood at the center of the battlefield, his breath ragged, his hands covered in alien blood. Tilera approached him cautiously, her golden eyes filled with something between awe and fear. "You changed during the fight," she whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly, his body humming with power. "I felt it." Varric wiped the blood from his blade, smirking. "So, the human finally accepts what he is." Ethan shot him a glare. "I don't know what I am." Varric tilted his head. "You will. Soon." Tilera stepped forward. "We have no time to waste. If the Drakmor found us here, they will find us again." She turned to Ethan. "We must leave. We must go to the Temple of the Elders before it is too late." Ethan met her gaze, and in that moment he knew. There was no escaping this anymore. The bond had already changed him. And there was no turning back. No turning back. The jungle was still burning when Ethan Carter made his choice. He stood among the wreckage of the battlefield, his hands stained with alien blood, his body thrumming with an energy that no human had ever known. His breath was ragged, but he felt more alive than ever. The bond between him and Tilera had evolved. It was no longer a whisper in his mind, but a roaring force inside him, guiding his movements, sharpening his instincts. He had fought with a precision that terrified him, yet deep down, it felt right. Tilera stood beside him, watching him carefully. She knew. She could feel it, just as he could. Ethan Carter was no longer just human. And there was no turning back now. The journey to the temple. They had no time to rest. The Drakmor had fallen, but their presence meant something far worse. More were coming. If the enemy had tracked them this far, it was only a matter of time before they hunted them down again. The only place left to go was the Temple of the Elders, a sacred place of the Veldzeri's ancestors, said to hold knowledge far beyond anything their kind had discovered. Tilera led the way, her movements swift and precise. Even exhausted from battle, she was effortless, a warrior bred for survival. Ethan followed close behind, his mind still reeling from everything that had happened. The landscape around them shifted as they moved deeper into the heart of Vaynera. The jungle gave way to towering obsidian spires, strange glowing flora, and rivers of liquid silver that pulsed like veins through the earth. Even the air felt different here, charged with something ancient. Tilera finally slowed. "We are close." Ethan looked ahead and felt his breath hitch. The Temple of the Elders was unlike anything he had imagined. A massive structure stood before them, carved from black stone that shimmered like glass. It was ancient, yet untouched by time. Strange glyphs glowed softly along its walls, shifting and pulsing as if they were alive. And at the heart of it all, a massive set of gates, radiating a soft golden light. Ethan could feel something inside those gates, something calling to him. Tilara turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Are you ready?" Ethan swallowed hard. "Not even close." Tilara gave the faintest hint of a smile. "Then it's time to begin." She stepped forward and placed her hand against the gate. The golden light flashed, reacting to her touch. Then it opened. Ethan had no choice but to follow. Inside the temple, the air inside was thick with energy. The moment Ethan crossed the threshold, he felt it, a presence that wasn't just in the air, but in his bones, his mind, his very soul. The walls of the temple shifted, responding to them. Light pulsed through the stone, revealing a massive chamber filled with glowing symbols. Tilara walked forward without hesitation. "This is the place where our ancestors sought knowledge. It is said that only those who are truly bonded can access the truth hidden here." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Guess we're about to find out." As soon as he spoke, the glyphs along the walls flared to life. A deep hum vibrated through the temple. And then a voice echoed from the stone itself. "You have come seeking answers, but are you ready for the truth?" Ethan's body locked up, his breath catching in his throat. The light in the chamber shifted, forming visions, not of the present, but of something older than time itself. He saw Velzeri warriors, their bodies aglow with energy, moving with impossible speed. He saw humans among them, their DNA intertwined with the alien race in ways that defied logic. And then he saw the war, a battle that had taken place centuries ago, one that had been erased from history. Velzeri and humans fighting side by side. And at the heart of it all, the first bond. Ethan staggered backward. This has happened before. Tilara's eyes widened. What? Ethan clenched his jaw. Humans and Velzeri. They bonded in the past. They fought together. The voice from the temple spoke again, and they were destroyed for it. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. The Drakmor. They had feared this bond, hunted it, erased it from history, and now it was happening again. Tilara looked at him, something like realization dawning in her eyes. "Ethan, this isn't just about us." Ethan exhaled sharply, his heart pounding. "It's about what we represent." They weren't just running from the Drakmor. They were defying a fate that had already been written. The final choice. The vision faded, and the temple fell silent. Ethan turned to Tilara, his voice low and steady. "If we do this, if we accept this bond fully, there's no undoing it, no going back." Tilara held his gaze, her golden eyes unwavering. "I know." Ethan felt the weight of it all pressing down on him. The choice was no longer just about survival. This was about breaking the cycle that had existed for centuries. Varric's warning echoed in his mind. The only way to protect him is to return to the Velzeri homeworld. And make a choice. Ethan's fingers curled into a fist. This was his choice. He turned to Tilara, exhaling slowly. "Then let's finish this." Tilara nodded, stepping closer. She reached out, placing her hand against his chest. The bond flared, the energy surging between them. Ethan felt the last pieces of his old self slipping away. And then light erupted from the temple. The bond was complete. And there was no turning back now. A new beginning. The moment the bond fully sealed, the temple of the elders shook. Ethan Carter felt his body ignite from the inside out, not with pain, but with power. It wasn't just strength. It was knowledge, memories, instincts that weren't his own. Visions flashed before his eyes. Ancient battles, warriors both human and Velzeri, fighting side by side. He saw the first bonded pair, the ones who had been erased from history, their connection so strong it defied the laws of nature itself. And then he saw what had been done to them. The Drakmor had not merely feared the bond. They had hunted it, erased it, destroyed any trace of it from existence. Until now. Until him. His body shuddered as the energy inside him settled. His breath came in sharp gasps, his muscles thrumming with new strength. Tilara was still touching him, her golden eyes glowing with the same power that surged through him. The bond had completed its final step. There was no more resistance, no more uncertainty. They were one. And the universe was about to change because of it. Return to the Velzeri homeworld. They left the Temple of the Elders Reborn. The journey back to the Velzeri homeworld was tense, the weight of what had happened pressing on both of them. Ethan sat in the cockpit of the stolen Drakmor ship, staring at his hands, hands that now felt foreign to him. He was still human, but something more. The bond had changed him, and not just in ways he could see. Tilara sat beside him, her gaze unwavering. She knew what he was feeling. She could sense it through their connection. "We are almost there," she said softly. Ethan nodded, gripping the controls. The stars stretched before them, and in the distance, he saw it, the Velzeri homeworld. A planet of towering silver spires, floating energy bridges, and oceans that shimmered like liquid crystal. It was breathtaking, but Ethan could already feel the tension waiting for them. They would not be welcomed as heroes. They were bringing back something that had been forbidden for centuries. And the Velzeri would have to decide if they would accept it or destroy it. The Council's judgment. The moment they landed, they were surrounded. Velzeri warriors, tall, elegant, deadly, formed a perimeter around the ship. Their weapons hummed with energy, their expressions cold and unreadable. Tilara stepped forward. "We demand to speak to the High Council." One of the warriors narrowed his golden eyes. "The Council does not meet with traitors." Ethan's jaw clenched. He could feel Tilara's anger through the bond, but she remained calm. "This is bigger than your laws," she said. "The bond has returned." A ripple of unease passed through the gathered warriors. They knew what that meant. After a long moment, the lead warrior gave a slow nod. "Follow me." The final choice. The council chambers were vast, an open space filled with floating glyphs and pulsing energy fields. 7 ancient Velzeri sat on elevated thrones, their expressions etched in stone. They did not look pleased. Tilara stepped forward first. "Ethan Carter and I have formed the bond. It is complete." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. One of the elders, a severe-looking woman with white hair, leaned forward. "You have defied our laws, Tilara. The bond was forbidden for a reason." Ethan crossed his arms. "Then maybe your laws are wrong." A shocked silence filled the chamber. The elder's gaze snapped to him. "You do not understand what you have done, human. The last bonded pair brought war to our people. The Drakmor hunted us for centuries because of it. The bond is a curse, not a gift." Ethan felt Tilara's rage flare through the connection. But he spoke first. "You're afraid," he said plainly. "You've been running from something for so long that you forgot why it started in the first place." His voice hardened. "The Drakmor aren't hunting you because of the bond. They're hunting you because they know what it can do, what it can create." Another elder, an older male with piercing silver eyes, studied him carefully. "And what human do you believe the bond is meant to create?" Ethan stepped forward. "A future where you don't have to run anymore." The room fell silent. Tilara took a deep breath and continued, her voice steady. "The bond is not a weakness. It is an evolution. The Velzeri and humans were meant to be connected, and we are proof of that. You can either embrace it or let history repeat itself." For a long time, the council said nothing. Then, the doors burst open. The Drakmor attack. The Velzeri palace trembled as the warning alarms blared. A warrior rushed into the chamber, his face pale with fear. "The Drakmor have breached our defenses. They are coming for the bonded pair." Ethan didn't hesitate. He turned to Tilara, the energy surging through him. "Looks like we're out of time." Tilara nodded, gripping her blade. "Then we fight." The council still sat frozen, uncertain, unwilling to move. Ethan's frustration boiled over. Make a choice. Stand with us, or let them wipe you out like last time. The elder with silver eyes hesitated, then rose to his feet. Enough. The bond has returned. He turned to the gathered warriors. And so has our strength. Ready the defenses. In that moment, Ethan knew the war had already begun. The final stand. The sky was on fire as the Drakmor ships descended. Velzeri warriors moved in unison, their weapons glowing, their forces rallying under the banner of something that had been buried for centuries. Ethan stood beside Tilara, their bond stronger than ever. The battle had only just begun. But for the first time, they were not running. They were fighting back. Together. The beginning of a new era. As the first Drakmor warriors touched the ground, Ethan knew one thing for certain. This was no longer just about him. It wasn't about his fate, or Tilara's. It was about changing the course of history itself. The bond was no longer a curse. It was a revolution. And the universe was about to feel its power once again.